today we're going to be talking about slope-intercept form. As an equation, it looks like y equals mx plus b if the line's not vertical. Remember, vertical line is vux, vertical undefined slope, x is a number. So vertical lines kind of have their own equation. For any other type of line, whether it's horizontal, positive slope, negative slope, it could have the equation y equals mx plus b. So it's used for a couple different things. First, it's used for finding the slope and y-intercept from an equation. And if the equation's already in slope-intercept form, it is very, very easy to figure out what your slope is and what your y-intercept is, because the slope is always attached to x. The y-intercept is always by itself and not attached to anything. It's called a constant. Okay? It's also very easy, if you're given a slope and y-intercept, to put those to write the equation of a line in slope-intercept form if you're given the slope and y-intercept. Another thing it's used for is graphing a line. It's very, very easy and quick to graph a line if you're given the form in slope-intercept form. Also, if you're given a graph, it's easy to write it in slope-intercept form if you look at the y-intercept and you look at the slope, and you could put it in the equation. So slope-intercept form is used for all kinds of things. Alright, so finding the slope and y-intercept from an equation. So we're going to be given an equation, and we're going to figure out what's the slope and what's the y-intercept. Well, remember, slope is always attached to x. Slope is always attached to x. So here's x, which means that's my slope or rate of change. Remember, slope and rate of change is the same thing. So my slope is not 2x, it's just 2. It's just the coefficient, the number with x. X is a variable, that's not the slope, because the variable changes. That's why it's called a variable, because it changes. The other thing, the 3, that's my y-intercept. It's a constant because it's by itself, not attached to anything. It's just a number. It doesn't change. It's always 3 in this case. Alright, next. Okay, so to find my slope, I find my x. Here's x. So there's my slope. 1/2. Positive 1/2. Positive 1 over 2. Which means that the negative 2 is my y-intercept. Next. Y equals -5. Okay, so on the last two, I've been looking for my x first. Well, there's no x here. Where's x? Well, if this -5 is not attached to anything, that must be my y-intercept. And in this case, since there is no x, the slope is technically 0. Because 0 times x would make it 0, and we don't have to add 0 to -5 because it's still -5. We call that the identity property of addition, because you can add 0 and it doesn't change. It's still the same thing. So our slope here is 0. Okay, so using the slope and y-intercept to write an equation, so we're going to be given a slope, we're going to be given a y-intercept, and we're going to put it in slope-intercept form. And remember that slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. If you can remember that, you can do a lot of things with linear functions. Alright, so a line is a slope of -3. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start off with y equals. If it tells me my slope is -3, well, slope is always attached to what? It's always attached to x. So I can say -3x. My y-intercept is 1. Well, that's a positive 1. So +1. I'm done. It's very, very easy. If it tells you what the slope is, slap it with x, and then add or subtract your y-intercept. So here we go again. A line has a slope of 1/4, so I can go ahead and say y equals 1/4 x. Slope's always attached to x, so if I know my slope is 1/4, I can go ahead and slap it with x. And the y-intercept is 0, so plus 0, plus 0. There we go. Okay, which is the same thing as just y equals 1/4 x. Okay? Because again, adding 0 doesn't change the value of anything. It's pointless. Alright, last one. A line has a y-intercept of 7, so we need that. So I can go ahead and write y equals, and I can go ahead and write y equals 7, really. And then write the equation of slope. Well, where's my slope? Well, remember last time, if there was no x, so the slope was 0. In this case, if it doesn't tell us what the slope is, it's going to be 0x again. But remember, 0 times x is 0, and adding 0 does not change the value of anything. So this is the same thing as just y equals 7. It would be a horizontal line. Alright, so now we're going to talk about writing the slope-intercept form of a line when we have missing information. So this is where it gets a little bit tricky, so you're really going to have to pay attention. So write the slope-intercept form. Okay, we got that. So we need y equals mx plus b. Alright, of a line that passes through the points 2, -3. Okay, so they give me a number. That's probably important. And has a slope of 1/2. Alright, so I can go ahead and say that my slope is 1/2, so I can go ahead and write y equals 1/2 x plus b. Well, they didn't give me a y-intercept, okay? So I'm going to have to think through what they tell me and what I know. Well, I know that slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. I know that my slope is 1/2, so that I know my equation is at least y equals 1/2 x plus b. Now, they gave me another piece of information. They gave me 2, -3. Well, if I think about what that is, that's a point, and it's on the line. It's an ordered pair. If I think about what the ordered pairs represents, it's always x, then y in an ordered pair. Remember, alphabetical order. X comes before y, w, x, y, z. So my 2 is my x, my -3 is my y in this case. Well, if I look back at my formula, I have a y and I have an x. So what I can do is I can substitute those numbers in and solve it for b, and then I'll figure out what my y-intercept is. So y, and my coordinate y was -3, so instead of y I'm going to write -3, 1/2. X was 2, so that's going to turn into a 2 instead of x. It's going to go here. Plus b. Okay, well I still don't know b. I'm going to solve for it. 1/2 times 2. Well, half of 2 is 1. Okay, plus b equals -3. And that 1 is a positive. So what I can do, in order to get b by itself, I need to subtract that 1. Okay, so I'm going to go over here so I don't run out of room. -3 minus 1 is a -4. If I'm subtracting, I'm moving to the left. -3 is to the left of 0, and I subtract 1 more. I'm moving 1 more space to the left, which puts me at -4. And then my equals b. Okay, so my y-intercept then is -4. So my equation is y equals 1/2 x minus 4 or plus -4. It means the same thing. Okay, so I had a point that the line went through, and I knew the slope of the line was 1/2. So I knew that the slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. I knew that my slope was 1/2, so I stuck that in for m, my slope, always attached to x. And I used the point. I knew that ordered pair is always x then y. So my x was 2. I substituted 2 in for x. My y was -3. I substituted -3 in for y. So instead of y equals mx plus b, instead of y equals 1/2 x plus b, I did -3 equals 1/2 times 2 plus b. And I did the math, and I subtracted to get b by itself, and I found that b was -4. And then I just put it all back in. My slope was 1/2, and then I used math to find that my y-intercept was -4, and that's my equation in slope-intercept form. Now, sometimes they may not give you a slope. They may give you 2 points. So what I have is I have a 1, 1, and I have a -1, 5. I have an x-coordinate, a y-coordinate, an x-coordinate, and a y-coordinate. I also know that I need slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. Alright? I don't have a slope and I don't have a y-intercept, but from the last lesson I know that I can find the slope of 2 points by finding the change in y and dividing it by the change in x. So my change in y from 1 to 5, that's increasing, positive, by 4. My change in x is actually going down by 2. It's decreasing from 1 to -1. Now those are both even, so I can divide top and bottom by 2. That gives me +2 divided by -1, which is -2. So I can say y equals -2x plus b. Okay, so now I know my slope is -2. I have 2 points that I can pick from. It does not matter which point I pick. I can pick 1, 1 or -1, 5. Now if I look at those points, I'm thinking that 1, 1 is going to be easier to work with because it doesn't have any negatives. So I'm going to use 1, 1 And remember that that's my x and that's my y. So instead of y, that turns into a 1. Negative 2x turns into a 1 as well, plus b. So negative 2 plus b equals 1. Okay, so that's a minus 2 or a negative 2. I have to do the opposite to bring it over. So I got to add 2, add 2. So that cancels. B equals positive 3. So my final equation is y equals m. My m was negative 2, x plus b. My b is positive 3. So that is my final answer. Okay, so we got some for you to try. You can hit the pause button if you need to, work on these, and then we'll go over the answers a little bit later.